I also have vision and hearing disabilities. I was born with cataracts and my right eye is blind because I have glaucoma. Park Rapids is a small town and there are not a lot of jobs available. I am not able to do most of the jobs in the competitive community anyway because of my vision problems and also because of my anxiety, which is very much, which is more difficult to control than a noisy or overstimulated places. When we visited other workplaces, they told us I needed to learn the jobs that they have available. At the DIC, they create and provide jobs that fit my individual skills, interests, and capabilities. All of my co-workers in Park Rapids also have special needs and disabilities, just like I do. Many of them have become my friends, like Luann Tita and Joyce Ketley. We have lunch together and we do activities after work with our Heartland Homes helpers. I feel like this has become the community where I am the most happy and feel the most comfortable. There were no openings in Heartland Homes, so I waited 7 years so I could live there with some of my co-workers. My family lives in a rural northern Hubbard County in Bemidji, so my dad needed to drive 50 miles twice a day to meet the DAC bus in Lake George, so I wouldn't be isolated at home all day. I will never be able to drive a car because of my vision problems and my anxiety and my other disabilities. So, like many other people, I really depend on the transportation that is part of our DAC program. I love riding the DAC bus to work every day, and the funny bus drivers who play different radio stations every day. I really love my jobs at the DAC and at the barely used thrift store. At the thrift store, I price and shelf donated items and sort and recycle used clothes. I price items using a pricing gun and sort the items I call unsellable items, wah-wahs. Sometimes I can even do my own personal shopping and buy items with my own money. My favorite job supervisor there is Nancy. Nancy gives me lots of items to price, teaches me how to do all my jobs, and helps to make things run smoothly for me and my co-workers. She also helps me if I become upset or anxious or have any other problems at work. Because I have OCD and autism, I may become anxious or upset very easily if things don't work right away, if there are unexpected changes, or if people accidentally get into my workspace. I don't always know how to appropriately handle social situations. Sometimes I even throw temper tantrums and lose my temper and to lose control of my hands and my body. I obsess about bad things and repeat phrases from cartoons over and over and over and over. Nancy has a lot of training and experience, so she understands workers and helps us work together successfully. I also work part of the day at the Park Rapids. I also work at the Hubbard County DAC in Park Rapids. At the DAC, I do a variety of jobs such as filing office papers, cutting price tags for the thrift store, shredding used papers, and grouping and rolling strips of fabrics into spinney balls that other employees weave into beautiful rugs or weavings. We sell our rugs at local gift shops. Everyone keeps busy at work. My favorite job supervisors at the DAC are Linda Kay because she lets me file files, and she helps me if I become anxious or upset. She reminds me not to let the unthinkables take over my brain and to use super flexible thinking. I also like Richard because he taught me how to make sticky balls and how to do other jobs that I like. Another thing I like to do at the DAC are instruction to lift weights twice a week. A healthy worker is a happy worker. Our motto is reduce, reuse, recycle. One person's trash is another person's treasure. I really help our community and our planet when I do my jobs at the DAC and the Barriers Thrift Store. I am so happy that I get to go to work every day. I would be very bored at home and if I couldn't go to work like my brother and sister did. I tell people that the world would be a better place if everyone loved their work as much as I do. I don't think I could work at a job that did not have special helpers and job supervisors. I needed a one-on-one helper called a paraprofessional in order to go to school when I was younger. Because of my high anxiety and my other disabilities, I never know for sure when the unthinkables will come take over my brain. I also need to work somewhere that does not have too much pressure and be flexible enough to accommodate my special needs. If I'm not in a safe workplace, some people might bully me because of my disabilities. Job supervisors who don't understand autism would not know what to do when I am upset. I really like my coworkers too. We all have so much in common and I feel very comfortable with them. When I was at school with people who were not handicapped, I didn't have any friends. I think friends are very important. At the DAC, they let us play games together during our break times at work, and there was choices to sign up for social and creative activities instead of working if we prefer to do that. Usually I prefer to keep busy and work though. Working is my favorite choice. Just like everyone else, I should have the right to choose where I live and work. I should also have the right to choose who I live with and work with. I don't want to be the only person with disabilities in my workplace. It is hard to be the minority. If you vote to eliminate special wages, then my workplace will need to shut down and I will no longer have the choice to work and I will be separated from all my friends. Some people think I need more money, but I really don't. My food and living expenses are already covered because there are programs to support people who have severe disabilities. I just need a little bit of money to buy new books and new DVDs and new art supplies sometimes. The people who help me at my job and in my group home are the ones who need more money. I am so happy I get to go to my job every day and I would be very sad if I could no longer work there. I always tell my family that I want to work until I'm 70 years old and live in my group home until I'm 80 years old. I know I am very, very lucky and I hope I can stay here forever. So please don't take away any of my choices. Handicapped people like me should have the right to choose where they work and where they live and who they live with and where they work with. So don't take away any of my choices.
Thank you for your testimony. Good afternoon. My name is Kovacovich, and I'm a retired educator from northern Hubbard County near Bemidji, Minnesota. My husband Michael and I are parents of 3 grown children, including Laura Kovacovich, whom you've just met. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, thank you so much for your service to our communities and for the state of Minnesota. And I also want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak with you today on this important issue. I'm going to focus on 2 major considerations with regard to this bill. The first is choice, and the second is regarding integration. When I look around this room, I see a lot of compassionate people who wish to serve their constituents in the most fair and equitable way possible. you wouldn't be considering this bill at all if you felt that somebody's rights and economic justice weren't being compromised. As a former special education teacher, I am very familiar with the least restrictive environment laws and the overall goal of integrating people with special needs into the mainstream as much as possible. In fact, I made sure, because I'm aware of the laws, I made sure that Laura was able to have a one-on-one para, which is very costly to school districts, by the way, so that she could attend school in a fully integrated setting. Since her memory is very intact, you can see she's educated. She wrote the speech, and she is very articulate in reading and speaking. And I wanted her to reach her full potential at that, because we didn't know what that was at that time. Now that she's an adult, our family has found it necessary to come to realistic terms regarding Laura's current abilities and also her future. She is definitely a vulnerable adult. She needs a fully supported living and working environment, both for her own safety and for the safety of others around her. She's not kidding when she says she loses control of her body and she has temper tantrums.
And I lose my temper.
Yep, that's a reality for a lot of our disabled people. We live in a very competitive, capitalistic society where disruptive behavior, high anxiety, and low productivity are generally not tolerated in the workplace. A baseline capability is necessary for any entry-level job in the competitive community. For those who do not have that baseline capability, the special wage provisions in 14C allows them to work in a supported setting at their own pace to the best of their ability. The compensation that they receive is based on average productivity for that particular job. Laura has made it very clear that she loves to work and would be devastated, and she would be devastated if this choice was taken from her. It's actually rather flawed logic that removal of this choice is going to somehow increase her capability so that she could work in competitive setting. That's just not reality. The employment model at the Hubbard County Developmental Achievement Center is person-centered. The people who are capable and interested in working in competitive mainstream work where people without disabilities are in the majority are already doing so. Those that, like Laura, who need a lot more support, prefer to work in the supported setting that's provided, regardless of what their wage is. One of the key misconceptions that many people have is a belief that working in a supported work center is a mandate. It is not a mandate, it is a choice. Nobody forces them to go to work in a supported work setting. Laura and others with similar disabilities do not need an income to provide for their daily living expenses. She is qualified for the developmental disability waiver that pays for this. There's other programs in place to help support the living expenses of people who qualify for these programs. The checks she receives from the DAC are regarded as spending money, and they help build her self-esteem as a contributing member of society. The dignity that she gains from having jobs she loves, and yes, some people really love repetitive work. It's the way their brains are wired. We're all different. And for some people, if you walked into a DAC setting and saw them enjoying the repetitive tasks that they do, may not be something that makes me excited, but it does to some other people. It's more valuable to them to do those jobs than the monetary reward. For us as parents and guardians, we appreciate that she has a comprehensive, full-day routine in a safe, developmentally appropriate setting. There's a lot of states who have abolished supported work settings. A lot of their children are going to work an hour a day at a grocery store, and then they have nothing to do the rest of the day. I mean, I wish there was more data on this to share with you, but at this time, it's just currently being gathered. She very likely receives more in services, from transportation to staff support, than she actually produces. When we factor wages for a typical job, support services are generally not part of that package. So just to be clear, without 14C provisions for sub-minimum wages, supported work centers like the Hubbard County DAC would not be able to remain in operation. Earlier, somebody said that they should be forced to do this. If they are, the reality is we've got some people that may work for like 10 minutes and then take a 2-hour nap, work 10 more minutes. There's people that work at a productivity level that's vastly different than yours or mine. We have to account for those differences. These workplaces cannot finance minimum wage when you have such a variability of capability and productivity. It's just not possible. Laura's workplace and the quality of life would end for her if these facilities were shut down, and they will shut down if they are forced to pay minimum wage. That's just reality. The jobs of her coworkers and support staff would be lost. Earlier this morning, I read that Minnesota has the most supported work settings. They call them sheltered workshops as kind of a derogatory way of positioning this. That they lead the way. I'm proud of that. That shows that Minnesota is one of the leaders in providing supported work settings for people like my daughter. This is something that we should applaud, not put down. Working for less than minimum wage is a choice, and if we take away that choice without first providing an alternative, we're destroying the quality of life for thousands of people. Are we prepared at this time to relocate all these people into meaningful, developmentally appropriate work with the necessary support systems they require, especially in rural areas like Park Rapids where there's few jobs to begin with? My second point, and I'll be brief with this, is regard to the concept of integration. I'm guessing that many of you have parents or grandparents or loved ones who are currently living in some type of assisted living center or a nursing home. In the past, the only choice for aging parents was to live in the home of another family member. Now we have other acceptable choices for this population. When my sister-in-law and her husband bought a condo at a 55-plus living center, we regarded that as a choice. When developmentally disabled people live or work together, we call it segregation. Before we create sweeping legislation that forces people with disabilities to always be the minority in a population, I think it's important to ask them what they prefer. If you have ever been in a situation where you were the only person of a certain race or gender in a room, you know how this feels. When Laura was fully integrated into the mainstream of socially savvy teenagers at her high school, she was a quiet, subdued little person, the only person in the room with autism and visual disabilities. At the DAC, her big, outgoing personality literally fills up the room. She's a confident person, popular with her peers. She has real friends for the first time in her life. She even has a young man who's interested in her. When it comes to integration, that too should remain a choice for the developmentally disabled and the families. It's not a choice for everybody. Not everybody wants to work in a supported work center. But as I said before, this is a choice. Anything less than continuing to offer that choice is discriminatory. I urge you to recognize that people with disabilities differ in their abilities. They differ in their abilities. They differ in their interests and their desires as much as the general population. When we remove choices that allow for dignity, quality of life, and for living and working among like-minded peers, we are compromising freedom. The provision of 14C does not take away anyone's right to seek employment in the competitive workforce. I'll say that again. The provision of 14C does not take away anyone's right to seek employment in the competitive workplace. Elimination of 14C will destroy all options for those who cannot work at a competitive level. It will destroy all options for people who cannot do this. Please don't take away this option. Instead, I invite you to look at the Hubbard County DAC program as an outstanding model of person-centered employment and opportunity. There's always room for improvement in many types of programs, and we need to work at providing quality options in every community, not just Park Rapids, especially in rural areas where employment opportunities are limited. Our HDAC Director, Laura Johnson, would be happy to fill you in on the specifics on our program up there. Laura and I, this Laura, would be happy to answer any further questions you have and share our testimony with you. I sure thank you for your time and your consideration. I have also printed out some 10 talking points that I can hand out to you before I leave today.
Thank you so much for coming down to testify.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Next up.